Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our ADVI Connect series. I'm very pleased that you've decided to join us. We've got a very interesting topic and very topical at the moment around connectivity and automation. So for those that don't know me, I'm the Executive Director of the Australia and New Zealand Driverless Vehicle Initiative, ADVI, and ADVI provides expert advice and guidance to industry and government alike on the issue and topic of driverless technology. ADVI has 4 pillars, and these pillars are there to help inform and guide the safe introduction of driverless vehicle technologies into Australia and New Zealand. So this is part of our reach pillar, where we reach out and we link you to leading minds and experts. And I'm pleased to say we've got some great expertise on the panel today from across Australia. We've just got some technical difficulties with one of our panelists, but we'll be hoping he will join us soon. So the format for today is that we're going to go through and introduce our experts. They'll tell you a bit about themselves, their organisation, and then we're going to pose some questions to them, and then we'll be very keen to hear your questions as well. So the topic is whether automation, driverless vehicles need to be connected. What's the program, what's happening in Australia and globally, and we'll get some insights around that. So without further ado, I want to introduce David Pickard from Volvo Car Australia. So David, welcome to the ADVI Connect series on connectivity and automation.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the next slide to come up, and we'll go from there. So from Volvo Car's point of view, we've been involved with connected vehicles and autonomous vehicles for quite a while now. We were involved with ADVI with the first of the demonstrations in Adelaide, as Rita reminded me, about 5 years ago now. So it's something different aspects we're looking at from a company point of view. It's resulted in some different associations with other companies. We've just announced a deal with Waymo. We have a collaboration with Uber as well, plus our own automation systems, looking at coming to a highway pilot system within the next couple of years on commercially released onto the market. That's probably it. Right?
Thanks very much, David. So I'll throw to Julian Broadbent, CEO of AEV. So Julian.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to join. AEV is a company that is about to launch possibly the world's first programmable digital mobility platform. We first showed the platform at CES in 2019, nearly just over a year and a half ago now. And the specific use of such a platform is that it operates at the lower end of the mobility market, and it's to address a whole variety of uses, not just the sorts of things that would be associated with delivery, but also in industrial sites, agriculture, and other applications. The real novelty of what we bring to the market is the fact that it is entirely powered by software. We've taken a lot of the complexity out of the solution that you would normally find in an automobile, which makes it much more like a robot, which therefore lies terrific opportunity for autonomous technology, the programmable platform, to do far greater jobs than just the common ones that come to mind, like ride sharing and delivery. So we're really excited about the future, and we genuinely believe that the rising tide lifts all boats, and it's a great time to be doing some awesome technology.
Thanks very much, Julian. It is a very exciting space to be in. So Andrew, just a bit of a brief intro and yourself and Cisco.
Yeah, thanks, Rita. Yeah, hi everybody. Andrew OBrien. I'm a business solutions architect in our industry solutions group for Cisco. So I'm responsible really for taking our very broad solutions and products and distilling it down into a vertical solution. And in particular, I focus on transportation. The last 5 or 6 years, I've been involved in the group building out different types of communications architectures to support transportation networks. So obviously heavily involved in connected vehicles and the associated infrastructure required to support a communications architecture for connected vehicles, as well as all of the underlying components that go up with it. So from my perspective, it's not just connecting the vehicle, but we also need to be able to do it in a secure manner. We've got to be able to do it in a secure manner, and it's got to be manageable as well. So I look at it from a holistic solution perspective from communication.
Thanks very much, Andrew. That's really exciting to have you on, and thank you for participating. So I'm going to throw to Dixon. I don't think Mario from Toyota's joined us yet, so we might come back to him. But Dixon from ARRB.
Thanks, Rita. So good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, as Rita mentioned, the national leader for the future transport systems at ARP, which is the National Transport Research Organization. Basically, what we do at ARP, for my team, we integrate all the different researchers that we have for this new technology to a commercial reality perspective, from a proof of concept for all the connected and automated mobility. We also look at the different infrastructure and the technology that comes with it, and how to basically link all this technology from a holistic perspective. So, like I mentioned, all the different proof of concept and all the trials to make sure we have a safe system approach. How do we ensure all the different use cases and test cases and different scenarios are being documented and to be trialed in a systematic manner? Thanks, Rita.
Thank you very much, Dixon. So as you can see, we've got quite a breadth of experience. We've got a cross-section of the industry sector around automated vehicles and the connectivity as well. So my first question is to Andrew. Just from your perspective and Cisco's perspective, where do you think Australia's at with connectivity across our network?
Great question. So really, from my perspective, the connectivity is there. I really don't think that technical problem that we're facing at the moment. The technology architectures, they're at a sufficient level for us to be able to move forward with connected vehicle connectivity. I think it's more about who goes first. There's a lot of supporting infrastructure that's required to go and support a connected vehicle network. We've got, the transport operators holding back. We've got the OEMs holding back. Really, it's a chicken and the egg problem, who really needs to get moving first. So some of the work that I've been working on, specifically with transport operators in Asia Pacific region, is how can we potentially put communications infrastructure in now and get a so can we slightly modify its use for use cases, maybe associated with safety, things like that. And then as the connected vehicle comes along, as those vehicles start hitting the streets, then that future point in time, flick the network over to make it for a connected vehicle as well. So I think that's what it really boils down to, is that we're not really a technology problem anymore. I think that debate is gone, it's past. It's really more about, how do we get moving as, as a community together? How do we move forward from there? That's I guess, my perspective.
Thanks, Andrew. And I think I was at an event where somebody's quite senior person said, they've been waiting for the technology to be ready. The sector, now the technology is ready. So yeah, that supports your view. So you talked about vehicles and the infrastructure and the regulators. So over to the vehicles representative, David. I suppose we hear a lot about what's happening overseas, particularly in Sweden. So, what are the lessons learned that you can share with us from what's happening with the home base of Volvo Car in Sweden, and how can that knowledge be translated into what we can expect to do in Australia around connectivity and automation, and how the two interface?
I suppose from a connectivity point of view, we started in 2016 with a cooperation running between Volvo Cars in Norway and Sweden, where either on slippery roads or hazard light warning, that information was transmitted via a cloud to other vehicles in the area, so that we knew that there was an incident on that section of road, and that was also shared with roads authorities That's expanded now. A couple of years later, we expanded it into Volvo trucks, and now sort of been spread out over Europe. So from a connectivity point of view, the cars are starting to be connected Volvo to Volvo at this point through Europe. Infrastructure-wise here, it's Volvo here, I suppose, is a small player in the market, but also as a car industry in Australia, we're quite small as well. So we're sort of a little bit of a receiver of technologies that's integrated into the cars. So that's probably part of the slowing down. And a lot of this, although the technology is available maybe now, it's not just a matter of, oh, we'll put it into the car in the next production. Yeah, maybe that might be, depending on the life cycle of that car, that may be another 5 or 6 years down the track before that tech can get into the car. So, and with Australia only being sort of less than 1% of the global market, we usually don't have that much push in what we can force the factories to send us.
Thanks for that, David. I don't know, that's very sobering actually when you think about it that way. So Julian, over to you. So we've heard from the traditional vehicles, but what are your thoughts on how connectivity will help, particularly the platform rather than vehicle that you're developing, and what areas will the technology that you're developing actually be assisted by some of this connectivity and the use cases that you're currently working on?
Yeah, we sort of, I guess just to frame it up a bit, we kind of see the phase we're in is one that would be typically described as disruption. And disruption by definition means that it's a combination of new technology as well as looking for a new solution at the lower end of the market, which is, Clay Christensen's definition. I guess I'd be really interested from a connected car point of view, what is that new technology that hasn't been used yet that will create that little step change and will do something new? And, I come from a world, the one that's similar to what David was in, and it's very much evolutionary, and David's example is a great one, being able to locate a vehicle and be connected in dangerous conditions, I get it. But what we're really interested in is as this world is starting to change a little bit, it's normally activated by technology. So I'd love to know from a connected car point of view, what is that little sprinkle of technology that's going to unlock something that we can't do in a step change kind of way? So I guess that's what I'm excited about. And just to put a couple of examples around that, I mean, there's connected car to infrastructure, but then there's also connected car to everything else. And, I sort of see those sorts of aspects of connectivity as being really interesting and building on the way that we probably live our lives now, because we're all connected right now. In fact, I think everyone in the world's connected. There isn't a PC in the world that's not connected. So how is this going to happen in mobility? Because I don't think it's happened yet.
So maybe I might throw to Andrew to see whether, you've got, Cisco, it's got, something that can inspire Julian that, that's around the corner that might be that step change without, is that something that companies like Cisco are looking at as far as, how they can support the new platform of mobility?
Yeah, I guess, I don't see anything revolutionary coming down the line. I think it is, a reasonably conservative market that is building upon what we've already got, and very much so taking around incremental steps. But that said, right, I think that a connected vehicle or a connected car communications network architecture, we're building upon things learned from things like the service provider industry, from critical networks used inside utilities. I think we're using a lot of that know-how from the way that similar industries manage their communication networks and build across into transportation. And there are some really cool stuff out there that is allowing things like 100% guaranteed delivery of communications transport or traffic. So in terms of taking that type of technology and cross-pollinating into transportation, it's definitely revolutionary. I would say, we're not doing it today, but the possibilities are there. But I think it's probably more taking things that we've learned elsewhere and applying them differently to make it suitable for a connected vehicle network.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but it was just timely. So over to you, Dixon. So what are some of the learnings from the technology trials and AV and CV testing that you've seen that maybe could set some sort of a framework? I know a lot of organisations have been involved in a lot of the testing that's been happening. Governments across, all the tiers of government have been actively involved in testing over the last 5 years. So what do you think are some of the learnings, particularly around the role of connectivity and automation?
Yeah, I guess both of Julian and Andrew touched respectively on the connectivity and also some of the automation. I guess from all the different proof of concept and trials that I've been involved with, has been looking at from that isolated perspective of whether it's connected or whether it's automation. I do see that that's something that ultimately will merge towards the future as the technology gets better. I mean, from a connectivity perspective, we're still having the discussion of whether or not we're talking about CV2X using the LTE or mobile cellular type connection, or whether the connectivity with DSRC talking to using the what we call dedicated short range radio waves to communicate with the actual vehicle on some of this messaging and what have you. So some of those learnings that we have, there's many different aspects, and depending on what trials and proof of concept that we're doing. But one of the major learnings is learning the technology. What are some of the gaps that we have currently and before they go into commercialization? And also look at some of the regulation or the rules pertaining or surrounding them. What needs to be changed in current scenario in the conventional sense? We also look at the human factors. Are people acceptable to the automation of the vehicles, and how are they using it? So the education comes into play. And one of the most important things, I'm sure Andrew can attest and can speak more to us, is about data. With all this connectivity and all this information that's floating around, how are we storing it? Whether it's the responsibility of a third-party entity such as the telcos, or is it another parties, or is it the automotive manufacturers? So there's all this discussion and all this implication with data. Of course, comes security and privacy. So the list goes on. Many learnings, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And one of the most important critical consideration that I dare say is, the approach to the actual testing and the verification of those results, such as using certain standards like ISO, which ARP has been involved in terms of like the shuttles and automation of vehicles, following some type of standards so that we can verify against it. Education to ensure that we understand the technology, but also for the public to understand what is it that they are actually being exposed to. And of course, with any test and any proof of concept, the safe system approach.
Thanks very much. We do have a question just in response to sort of the discussion around the fact that the technology is ready. But the question is, what about the infrastructure? So this one I'm happy for either for Dixon and others, Andrew and Julian and even David. So is the infrastructure ready? And do we need to upgrade it to a new level? And is that new level, is that well understood what that new level is? So maybe from an ISO standards perspective, and also whoever wants to answer the fact around, is the infrastructure ready? So Dixon, do you think that there's a standards and guidelines around that?
I believe that there is, and there's been a lot of discussion in Europe and in the US and even China. So I'm very fortunate to sit on the International Road Federation Connected and Automated Mobility Committee, where we're talking about the smart infrastructure and how ready are those infrastructure in preparation for connected and automated mobility. Some of the question was they're looking at Australia. You know, I mean, we've done some survey, CAB services, we connected automated vehicle survey, where we look at road signs, the line markings, the lane width, how are the systems, how are the actual sensors, and what have you, picking up all the different markings, and how ready are we? You know, from the motorways, the freeways, to the highways, and to the normal, you know, arterial roads. I guess there's a lot of work being done. But nothing is cohesive, you know, from an Australian-wide perspective. We're doing from state to state. I think that there definitely needs to be some coordination of the infrastructure and getting the infrastructure ready. And that comes into both the connectivity as well as the automation, like I mentioned. You know, from the connectivity, like I said, there is still the cellular or the dedicated short-range frequency or the radio frequency perspective, which means that there needs to be investment into those technology for the road infrastructure.
Thanks. I just saw Mario has joined us. Welcome, Mario.
Hello,
I'm glad that you could join us. No problem at all. This is technology at its best, and we move with the times. So Mario, do you want to just introduce yourself and your role at Toyota?
Yes, I'm Mario Filipovic. I work for both Lexus and Toyota in the ITS space, and at the moment we're conducting some trials with different states in Australia, and just looking to learn what the technology is capable of, and what necessary complementary systems there needs to be, and how ready the technology is. Thanks, Rita.
Great, thank you. So I'm just mindful of time, and we have got some questions mounting up, and we've got some, so just want to throw to you, Julian, around how you see the rollout of this connectivity and the automation. Your platform can allow, you know, high levels of automation. You're probably not looking at the freeway type scenario, a use case, but are you planning on, what do you see, you know, as far as your planning of rolling out the, you know, the application? Are you expecting this connectivity, some level of connectivity to be in place, or are you just looking at it being fully autonomous?
Yeah, so the actual vehicle platform is specifically designed to deliver cargo. It's not designed to deliver people. As both Mario and Dave would know, any automobile is a lot of time is spent to make it work really nicely for passengers and drivers and things like that. It can be the bane of a lot of automakers, getting quality and noise and things right. So we've taken a path to deliver goods and to also remove things like garbage and do other jobs and things like that. So that means, in effect, if there's no passengers or drivers on board, we are truly automated. But there is a really essential part of connectivity for us. And I think it'd be interesting to sort of look at this large trend, is that to actually put what would be called a level 4 autonomous vehicle on the road that does not have a driver, it must actually be connected to a remote control room or an area of supervision. It doesn't have to be in the same proximity. It can be some distance away. And I don't think Australia is new to this. I would say that our automated mine sites do this already, where they run fully autonomous vehicles. They're obviously fully connected in their own network. So I think of fully autonomous vehicles with no driver on board, connectivity does play a role, and that role is to create that redundant link to a control room where that vehicle could be managed in a crisis or anything like that in an emergency. So it's not just about connecting to infrastructure, it's actually about being connected to your fleet before it goes level 5, which will be some long time away, I would say.
Thanks for that. And, you know, Australia is, there's a lot of talk about the space agency and the control rooms and control centres for space. Yeah. And there's a number of those scattered all over Australia. And I don't think you can get further away than that. And having remote remote control of those systems. So there's a lot of expertise and knowledge already in these remote control systems, not just in mining, but other aspects that Australia's got significant expertise in. So Andrew, just over to you. What's sort of when we talk about scenarios, and Julian mentioned a couple of scenarios, what's the best scenario for a rollout of connectivity to support automation and driverless technology? Are there some likely early use cases that you think, you can see happening already on the horizon? And specifically, we don't want to miss regional areas. There's, Australia's geography and topography around regional. We need to, have a solution for the regional transport solution as well. So, yeah, a few questions in that one. Maybe you can give us some insights.
Yeah, sure. I guess I wish I had the crystal ball, but fortunately I don't. But I guess in terms of a best case scenario in rollout, I think for connected vehicles, there's no reason that can't start immediately, and it has been doing so in other countries globally. We're starting to see those ultra large scale rollouts for connected vehicles. But I think when you're talking about the automation levels that Julian was talking about, and I've worked on those mine sites with automated dump trucks, we're still some way away from there. If you look at the way those systems work on those mine sites, if they lose connectivity to an automated vehicle, it starts to set up exclusion zones, and everything inside that exclusion zone has to shut down. And I just don't see us having, that level of reliability in a public environment for quite some time. But that said, there could be other ways to solve that problem as well, right? That, I know we need 100% reliable connectivity, but maybe there's another way to solve that problem. But I think, in terms of starting and getting the ball rolling, before we get to that level, we've got to start with a connected vehicle around those, B2X type. And that's our first step. And as I said, I'm starting to see some Europe coming with the large rollout. And if it happens, short.
So Andrew, you're just breaking up a bit. I don't know if that's just me or others. So do you want to just see how you go? But you're breaking up a little bit.
Yeah. Sometimes it works better with the headset on. Is that better?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So apologies, I don't know how much of that you heard, but as I said, I think globally we're starting to see the tide starting to change from a connected vehicle perspective and the communication networks that sit behind that connected vehicle architecture. But as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, I think it's a big step between that and a fully autonomous vehicle connected network. I think there's still going to be some gaps, especially regionally. You can drive now between Sydney and about Coffs Harbour with full telephone connectivity the whole way, and that's a massive change compared to 2 or 3 years ago, but it's still not at the reliability that we need yet. It's what do we do when things don't work properly, or there's black spots, or changing weather, or whatever it might be? There are still questions to be resolved.
Yeah, so Telstra is one of our major funding partners, been with us just as long as Volvo for the last 5 years. They've got a black spot program that they've been funded to do this. And then when I talk to the fully automated technology partners, they tell us they have multiple layers of redundancy in their vehicles, so they don't rely on one sort of aspect. So there's multiple layers of redundancy. So connectivity is maybe as part of that. That regional aspect of connectivity is being worked on at multiple levels, but it's not, probably not going to be the only fatal thing around the deployment. So moving to our traditional cars and so both having Volvo and Toyota are involved in this presentation. To David, I think there's been a lot of publicity around Volvo's electric vehicle and electrification of their vehicle fleet. And in parallel with that, the advanced driver vehicle technology as well, and most recently the announcement with Waymo and Volvo that you mentioned. So when are we most likely to see that sort of technology, the electrification, and you know, some of that higher levels of automation coming into the Australian marketplace?
We're starting to see it sort of, it's gradual. It's been a gradual increase probably the last 10 years. You know, some of the functionality we had, the first of the automatic braking systems, to now where we have the pilot assistance on the motorways and things like this. So it's gradually rolling in. Even the connectivity is coming in as well. You know, we have over-the-air updates coming soon. The car's now connected in through a cloud server, so owners can update the apps in the car. They can update the maps as they're driving along in the vehicle. And the next step then is embedded phone into the vehicle, which will actually then allow the over-the-air updates and such. And that'll bring in the electrification as well. So at present, we're rolling out the whole of the range has a hybrid aspect to it. So a type of plug-in hybrid engine is available. The next step for that will be go to the full battery vehicles, which will either be through Polestar and through Volvo. And again, they're more a higher level of connectivity through those as they go through. But from a Volvo point of view, this has always been about safety. So the advanced systems are always going to keep on coming out, and there'll always be more improvements to those, because from our point of view, we get much more safety benefits from today's car without any connectivity, just by having all the driver support systems that are in the vehicle, and that's our number one priority, really. But one thing with that is we're talking more and more now about having autonomous functionality or systems, because we won't be providing a level 4 car. We'll provide a car that on certain conditions will be able to drive level 4, but 5 minutes around the road, you may be diverted to the wrong side of the road, you may be level 0 and you have to do everything yourself. So this is sort of one thing, is it won't be a pack. It'll give you an option on certain road conditions, certain time of day. If you're traveling down the snow and all of a sudden there's a heavy snow flurry, you may have to take control of the car and you're not able to drive it through autonomous function. So this will be the gradual rollout. It's not just going to be click the switch and all of a sudden we've got an autonomous car. We will have certain functions on certain roads, and that will just increase as the technology gets better.
Great, thank you for that. So Mario, over to you around, you know, so Toyota does have a significant market share in Australia around the vehicles. So what are some of the new technology offerings to enhance safety and some of the CITS opportunities around what's coming to market through the Toyota product and even the Lexus product that you're bringing to Australia?
Sure, the individual technologies that we offer even now with our safety sense are going to be enhanced by things such as pre-collision systems that actually include pedestrians, the all-speed active cruise controls, things such as lane tracing assist and adaptive high beam systems and roadside recognition and front cross traffic alert on some of our vehicles. But the real opportunity lies with the enhancement of CITS, which is building on top of those things, because some of those things get better and better, but the ultimate is to actually have the additional functionality of CITS. So what we've been doing in Australia, both with the Victorian and Queensland government, is actually trialling some of these activities. So we've used our own people to build vehicles and suppliers, both here in Australia and overseas. And we've recently done a program with Victorian government and Telstra, which is just completed and was quite successful. And we're currently working with the Queensland government to ensure that we've actually get to experience the latest technology of vehicles talking to vehicles and vehicles talking to infrastructure such as traffic lights, so that we can learn what can happen. Our parent company has sold over 200,000 cars with CITS, and we want to see how soon can we to Australia and what we can make that happen.
So thanks, Mario. I think you're cutting a bit in and out there. So I think, that probably leads me on to asking about the technology platforms, the Guardian and the Chauffeur technology platforms. Maybe you can give our listeners a bit of a sort of a summary of what they are, and then how do they fit in relation to the connectivity with those platforms.
Thank you. I hope the sound improves. With the Chauffeur and Guardian system, that's something that the Toyota Research Institute in the US has been studying. The Guardian system is basically one where the human's still in charge of the vehicle, but all the electronics and sensors is actually monitoring what is going ahead and is able to step in when required. And some of that technology is slowly drifting into our normal product. In the case of the Chauffeur, this is a lot more like the normal automated vehicle. This is one where essentially most of the driving is done by the vehicle. It's very early. There has been a lot of success, particularly on test tracks, but we hope that that comes to fruition sooner rather than later. In terms of the CITS, we think that CITS is always going to be integral with connected vehicles, primarily because of the fact that if you just try to replicate what a human can see and do, you won't get the benefit of, for example, vehicles communicating where they don't have line of sight. So you also don't have some of the traffic scenarios. So if a human can't see a pedestrian, CITS solves that problem. If a human can't see a pedestrian, the sensor probably won't either. But in being able to communicate with people on the street, you get that advantage. The main advantage is that in being able to communicate with all the other cars on the road, then things like lane changing and those elements become a lot more certain, and it really complements the automated function.
Thanks, Mario. I've had a number of questions come through. One of those that's resonating is actually, who pays for this? So who pays for this technology to connect? And, we're all recipients of the safety benefits. Julian's platform and technology is going to be a recipient. The Volvo and Toyota vehicles are going to be, recipients. So I'm going to throw this one to Andrew, because they're your customers, I suppose. Who's your customer? Who do you think's going to pay for it? And maybe I'll throw to Dixon, and you can be the neutral party and maybe decide who should pay for it, or putting you on the spot there. But Andrew, I'm not going to ask you how much it costs, because there's a lot of how much does this cost coming through. But who is going to pay for it, and what are you seeing as far as the willingness to pay?
Yeah, I guess the user or the customer ultimately always pays, doesn't they, one way or another. But what we're finding quite interesting is that there is some very other interested parties, like you talked about the people that we've got on the call now, but there's also consortia, there's insurance companies that are also interested in this data, making it safer, lowering premiums. So I think ultimately it's going to be varied. It's not going to be one specific source of funding or one specific person that's going to fund it. I think over time, as different people utilize this data, they'll find benefit for it and ultimately be willing to pay for it. And that's something that has been key for me, is trying to get this data out and make it usable. It's obviously about vehicles talking to each other. It's obviously about intersections talking to each other. It's making roads safer and safer for pedestrians, things like that. But there is so much data that we can gain out of this that can be used for so many other purposes. There's efficiency, there's planning. I mentioned insurance. There's lots and lots of different users of this potential data. So if we can unlock it, and if we can get it out of the network and we can put it into a usable format, there's potential that could be shared, among a great number of people or organisations willing to pay for that data. So I don't think it's going to be one true source. I think it's going to ultimately be, lots of different organisations, companies, people willing to collect that information and data.
Great answer. Looks like you got lots of customers lining up. Dixon, putting you a little bit on the spot. What do you think? So the data is the output of once the infrastructure and the technology is in place, but we need to get that technology in place. So what are you seeing from the ISO committees that you're on as far as an appetite for investors in this technology?
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I believe Andrew pretty much covers quite a large scale of what he just shared. Ultimately, somebody has to pay, as we all know. It comes at a different source and different incentives, and at a different point in time, again, depending on the type of technology we're talking about. Even if we look at the road infrastructure perspective, whether or not the government were to invest in certain type of technology, but how can that be shared amongst the road, the use, and also the public from that perspective, and also the manufacturers, because ultimately at the end of the day, the consumers are the one that will dictate whether or not technology is going to be, be regarded highly or not, especially from a traditional vehicle perspective. I have my sister-in-law, what have you, they'll probably be more into the radio sound system that they've got in the car and maybe the safety aspect. So many different aspects, as Andrew has pointed out. There's different so-called customers from that angle. But ultimately, again, from the regulatory and from the other stakeholders such as ISO, what have you, we're developing that technology regardless of who is going to pay from that perspective. Because ultimately, we know from a Cisco to a manufacturer to the driver, then to the road infrastructure, somewhere along the line, somebody ultimately, maybe everyone, from that perspective, will be paying the cost of it in some way or another.
So I noticed that Infrastructure Australia has just put out a call for submissions for their 2021 infrastructure priorities. There's a lot of stimulus funding going around as part of, incentives for rebuilding our economy after COVID-19. So I think that there's huge opportunities currently around how we start maybe getting more understanding about this digital infrastructure and the connectivity and also the automation to usher in the benefits of higher levels of automation. So I just wanted to ask you all for your opinions, if you have one, on why hasn't it happened yet in Australia? Maybe Julian, you're smiling and you haven't, why haven't we seen more widespread deployment of higher automated vehicles, even, for the purposes that you're developing yours? And also, why haven't we seen the technology, just from your personal opinion and observations?
I was smiling because I didn't really know the answer. As to what happened yet, but you sort of covered that. The reality of automated vehicles coming into a community, it's not just about the technology providers having it ready. It's also about the community or the location being willing to accept it. And I don't know if Australia quite yet, like some parts of the world, has an urge just to have the technology in their lives. And, it's that old saying, pushing a rope. I think it's a little bit pushing a rope in Australia at the moment. This is outside the natural evolution of the technology set on an automobile. This is that, automated vehicles in our lives. I think Australia still is somewhat of a lag when it comes to just sustainable transportation, EVs and things like that, particularly compared to other parts of the world. So I would generally side with the idea that that a lot of things tend to happen when there's a demand, and that demand hasn't quite boiled to the surface in Australia. But we've seen some great things happen with EV charging stations. Yes, it was a little bit later than the rest of the world, and we've seen some adoption of other technologies that help. But to be honest, I think there is a real need, and that need hasn't been it's not quite ready from a technology point of view. There's more pedestrian deaths in the world than there has been before, and at the moment, traditional automobiles are designed to crash. And that's not saying that that's a bad thing. They do a really good job of protecting the driver and the occupants with all sorts of technology that we've seen, you know, increase in the vehicle. But I think there's such a great opportunity for a connected aspect to automated technology that can actually be a real safety solution for communities that we expect these autonomous vehicles to go into. And that might, if that was understood, that might unlock a sense of demand, a sense of, yes, we do want them because it's going to protect us, versus just give someone time back on the way to work. So yeah, sort of a demand. I guess my answer, Rita, is really a demand. It hasn't happened yet because it's really a drive and an urge inside Australia. Yeah.
And so, you know, your platform is electric, and do you think that that's the same, you know, are we on the same trajectory as far as the electric vehicle and acceptance in Australia? We usually pride ourselves on being an early adopter. You hear all these things about, you know, companies testing and trialing on the Australian market, but we just seem to be very late to the party on some of these aspects. Do you see them on the same trajectory?
Yeah, look, they are possibly of a similar nature. I mean, both Volvo and Toyota have some exceptional technology. And I think Australia, I don't think Australia is an early adopter, to be honest. Not in the Western world and the developed world. But in fact, I'd even say some of the undeveloped worlds are more of an adopter of technology than Australia. Credit to them. You know, Australia could do a lot more to support this technology by not putting barriers up or keeping barriers that might be there for traditional solutions. Like I think most countries will incentivize electric vehicles, and those electric vehicles normally come with a lot of technology like connectivity and things like that. But I think Australia at the moment is still not providing those incentives, and in some cases even still has the luxury car tax because of their price point. So it's sort of, like I said, it's a bit of an ecosystem of desire and urge, and I think it's as well as the connected infrastructure, it all goes together. I think everyone on this call would love to see a bit more of an urge from from Australia in general.
Sure, and I suppose that we've got Toyota and Volvo on this panel. So what's the scenario for a Toyota and a Volvo to talk to each other, or you know, for the brands to talk across each other? Is that, David, something that your global committees that you're involved in, and also Mario, is that something that is on the agenda around the vehicles speaking to each other? Maybe David first and then Mario?
Yeah, it is. You know, there's sort of working groups in Europe with ISO standards and things like that for communication. But I think at present, I know from Volvo sort of focus, our push is actually for the communication between the cloud and between our own vehicles. But as I said before, you know, that's been expanded out through other manufacturers. But it's almost a little bit, one of the first questions we were talking about was, who pays for it and how's it roll out? It's sort of like a natural attrition, you know, like 10 years ago, no one had an automatic braking system. Now you can't have a 5-star ANCAP car without it. So a lot more technology is going into a lot more cars, and the cars haven't really gone up in price compared to what was in a car 5 years ago to today. Are very similar. But communication between the vehicles is something that'll happen, but there's no point in us trying to talk to everybody when at present there's not enough people to talk to. And we still have to get to the point where we have the embedded technologies in the car to start talking outside of our own networks, because then talking to other manufacturers, we also then have to come into security aspects of that as well, because opening up a Volvo network to other manufacturers opens up to a lot more people than just ourselves. So there's a little bit more than just plugging it all in and hoping it works.
Mario, so your views?
I agree with David. It's probably going to be more led by what happens in the European environment rather than Toyota Australia and Volvo Australia getting together. What we're trying to do locally, particularly with connected
vehicles. We'd love you to get together in Australia. Great. We could lead the world.
There's also an expense involved, and that's particularly true when you talk about automated vehicles, where because they're AI systems and they do require millions of kilometres on the road, and you can't just take a car that works really well overseas and just drop it on the Australian road and have it work perfectly. But I think in the connected space, there's so much work in Europe that we're probably going to be followers of what happens in that environment.
And Dixon, you're on a number of committees as well, so am I mindful of time? And I think we have got lots of questions, and I'm happy to share them afterwards, but the conversation has sort of talked around some of the questions that people have asked. So, so Dixon, your views on that, the interoperability and communication?
Yeah, I was just going to add that, you know, there has been quite a number of work in the European and even in US, and there is this concept of, you know, we all talk about the cloud, all the information going to the cloud, but there's still localized area, what we know as the fog, where there's localized area where there's common data sets that's being utilized by different manufacturers. There's almost an alliance, if you like, of the essential information to be shared during the fog, so to speak, where we're trying to, you know, allow the different manufacturers to be able to communicate using this third-party type communicative what we call environment known as the fog, and there's been some studies and what I call standards that's being looked at in order to allow for such operation to be existing as part of a proof of concept and trials in other countries, and it is hopeful that there is some what we call discussion locally here in Australia, but nothing yet, so to speak. But I wouldn't be holding, you know, in the next 12 months, 24 months, maybe that's something that we can be looking at in the Australian environment.
Thanks. And Andrew, I know that speaking of fog and some of these other things, I know that you've got a very close relationship with Coda Wireless. You work with them very closely in a range of things, and they're recognised as a global leader in this sort of sector, as is Cisco. So some of that sort of the interoperability, are you involved in any of those international projects around assisting with that?
Yes, I guess is a short answer. And interestingly, we've been doing a lot of work with you know, interoperability between DSRC and C-V2X and making those two systems interoperable. You know, there's no reason that they can't communicate with each other. So there is some work obviously going on around about that. And yeah, I guess that, you know, there is some level of interoperability capabilities that will be there eventually, I think.
Thanks for that. Look, I'm just mindful of time, and I do want to give you all the opportunity to sort of have a final closing comment, particularly around if you think about phrasing or shaping your comments around, you know, are we doing enough in Australia around, you know, ushering this in? I think, Julian, you've sort of spoken to that as well. You know, if we are, that's great. If we're not, you know, maybe what else we could be doing, and what could ADVI be doing on behalf of the sector to advocate for that. So maybe I'll throw to David first, and then work my way around. So, you know, is Australia doing enough? And if not, what else could we be doing around promoting the sector and the connectivity?
It's hard to say whether we're sort of doing enough without actually sort of having the technology here to work on. I suppose one thing that we need to focus on, I think, is, and we touched on this with the connected vehicles and autonomous vehicles, is we need to look a little bit closer about having one standard, so that we're not having to sort of have different regulations for Western Australia as opposed to New South Wales, South Australia and things like that. So we need to sort of focus on having one common set of goals for us to build a car to, as opposed to, you know, what's a roadworks speed limit in South Australia as opposed to what it is in New South Wales and things like that. So that's probably the one thing, and there is work going on with this, but one set of standards, one set of goals for us in this country would be the thing we need to look at.
Great, thanks. Andrew, are we doing enough? What else could we be doing?
I think that there is more that we could be doing, and I think it's, you know, we've done so many pilots and tests of, you know, connected vehicle technologies, And as I said at the start of the call, it's not a technology problem. I think that's largely solved now. I think it's time to move on into something real and tangible. Are we doing enough? No. How do we move forward? That's a really difficult question. I think that, it's an industry as a whole is responsibility, but it probably will require some organisation to lead, whether that's government or elsewhere. But it does need somebody just to kick it over. And I 100% agree with David is that we've got to get out of this technology debate, the technology war. It's just, pick something, let's move forward and start going, progressing.
Julian?
It's a hard one. Are we doing enough? I don't think so. I certainly take Andrew's point about the trials and the pilots, and you can just do all of those until the cows come home. And you would hope that you would generate a lot of really good knowledge from that. I mean, you would hope that you're not just doing a pilot to appease someone's interest in technology. You hope that the pilot is what we would call in our organisation investing in the question. I think that's probably a phrase that I would say would be a really good next step. So not pilots for people to become aware and interested, but maybe different types of efforts where you actually invest in this question that you're asking, and really try and understand what the first instance of something being active and commercial, which ties directly into the autonomous space as well. When's it going to be commercial? So I would say the rest of the autonomous driving sector, where it's not the evolution of a traditional motor vehicle, is also faced with a similar challenge. There's technology that's there. It's not perfect, but how can it be commercial? So yeah, we use a phrase in our organisation also like the blinking LED, which just means to get the very first thing to happen. And maybe that's what Australia could do, is find an instance where we are using connectivity in a commercial way, and we are linking it with some of the other technologies that are also ready, and create some commercial value, not just a paid for, sponsored by trial. So that would be sort of my wish for something to happen. Yeah. That could involve the whole ecosystem too, Rita. It wasn't just AEV specific.
No, I think that message is clear, and thanks for that. Mario, very quickly, because we're running out of time, yeah.
Agreed on the selection of the actual technology, and we do need a pathway to production. The value of the trials is we've got to build a talent in Australia, so we've got to have the expertise to do these things. Otherwise, we're just going to be beholden to what happens overseas. Yeah, great. Thanks.
Great point. And Dixon, for final comments, and then I'll conclude our session.
Yeah, I think all the panelists has already touched on all the main points. The only thing I would like to add is agree with every single one of them, and to really come from a holistic approach. We can draw on all the different synergies that every single panelist has already mentioned, but definitely from a holistic approach where the government sectors, the industry sectors, and even the public sector, to come together to understand what this is all about. Thanks, Rita.
Thank you very much. Look, on behalf of the ADVI collaboration, I'd like to thank you very much. You're all very busy people, and I really appreciate you sharing your insights with the participants. We've had a huge turnout for this event, so I wish you well in your endeavours, and look forward to catching up with you in person sometime soon. Thanks very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.